Hi, Lions. It's Miss Sanchez, and today we are going to go over some vital vocabulary words. So get a paper and pencil, and let's get ready to go over these new words, their definitions, what they mean, how to use them, and how to incorporate them into our comprehension when we encounter them in some of our reading. Get a paper and pencil, and we can go over the definitions together. Okay, scholars, so we are going to go over 8 new vocabulary words for today. On the page you see here, we have 6, but we have 2 additional ones that we'll be using later today when we play a little game. So first, I want you to grab a paper and I want you to make a grid, something like this, so that you can fill in a word with a sentence and even an illustration if you want to help you understand and remember what that word means. So I'm simply going to go over our words, the context sentence, the illustration, and redetermine for ourselves the definition of what that word means so we can remember it and use it properly. So our first word here is gracious. Gracious is another way of saying that someone is being kind or polite. So when someone is being gracious, they could share snacks. So our context sentence is the gracious student shared snacks with the class. She was doing something nice. She was doing something kind and polite. So here's a picture to match our context sentence. The gracious student shared snacks. So gracious means displaying an act of kindness or being polite. So when someone's being gracious, they're being nice, they're being kind, all sorts of good positive things. Our next word that you can write down is stale. Stale is another way of saying that something is no longer fresh. So our picture here shows bread. So you know how when you leave the bread bag open or chips or cereal and they're not as crunchy or fresh or soft or tasty as they are when you first buy them, that means they are stale. They're no longer fresh. The bread was stale and look, no longer fresh. So when something is stale, that means it goes from a good version to a bad version. The good version of the fresh bread is soft and delicious. The stale version is hard and crunchy and dry. Our next word is flattened. Flattened is another way of saying something is laying flat on a surface or it goes from one shape to a flat shape. So that's a 2D flat shape laying down. There's no front or back or sides. So for this one, they drew a picture of a horse's ears. The horse flattened its ears against its head. So his ears were once up or out, and now they are laying flat against his head. You can say something also like, nail flattened my basketball. My basketball was once round, and then it went into a different flat shape. It is flattened. We also have our word frantically. Frantically means that you have a lot of nervous energy. You're afraid of something. You're worried about something. Something is making you nervous. So it says the lost dog frantically looked for the owner. So you can see here, this dog is nervous. They're scared. They're upset, and they're worried about not being able to find their owner or find their home. I recently got a new dog and she's run away out of our house a few times, and I frantically tried to chase her through the yard to get her back in the house. I was very nervous, very upset, very worried that something would happen to her. So when you do something frantically, that means you have a lot of nervous, worried energy. So we have our context sentence to help us understand what frantically means and a picture to help us as well. All right, we have 2 other words. We have muttered. Muttered is a way of saying like you're mumbling, you're stifling your words, you're talking under your breath, you're not very loud, so people can't really hear you that well. So when someone mutters, that means Nobody heard the boy when he muttered the answer to himself. So maybe he wasn't very sure, or he wasn't very confident in his answer. So he said it really low and you can't really see his words. Do you see how I muttered that? I was very low. My words were jumbled together. You couldn't really understand what I was saying. So when someone mutters, that means they're suppressing their words and their voice to make it low, all bunched together, hard to hear and hard to understand. Nobody heard the boy when he muttered the answer to himself. We have another word, official. So when something is official, that means it is guaranteed, number one, authentic, original, and the cat was the official winner of the race. He was the natural winner. He won fair and square. It was all put together by whoever coordinated the race, that he passed the race and finished officially based on whatever rules they had in place. So we could say last year, Omari was our official school president. He won his race, he ran his campaign, and based on the votes, he was made the official president of everyone, all of the students in Urban Academy for the presidency. So he was our official winner. It was established by the rules and by everyone in charge. The cat was the official winner of the race. So here you can see he's beating that dog fair and square in the race. So he is the official winner. Now, not on this page, we have two other words. We have the words original and the word brainstorm. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to look over the rest of the words and context sentences to fill in your grid if you haven't already. And we are going to come back and do our last two words, brainstorm and original. All right, Lions, I hope you finished writing all of our context sentences or even adding a few of your own illustrations to match these words. We're going to go over our last two words for our vocabulary session. So our first word is brainstorm. Brainstorm. And our definition for brainstorm, or our context sentence, would be a group of people get together and share ideas. So when I'm talking about a brainstorm, that means I want a group of people to get together and come up with or share or create new ideas about something. For example, if we get a new class pet, and I say, okay, everyone, I want you to brainstorm possible names for our class pet. So everyone would get together and share their ideas for what would be a good name for our class pet. So our context sentence could say, my class had to brainstorm good names for our new class pet. Because brainstorm means a group of people getting together to share ideas. So I'm going to pause and let you guys come up with your own illustration for that. What would you draw to show a brainstorming session? How would you illustrate having a group of people get together and make new ideas? Would you have them all at a table with thought bubbles? Would you have them in a classroom writing down ideas on a board? How would you illustrate brainstorm and what that means as a group of people getting together to share ideas? Go ahead and take some time to make your illustration. All right, scholars, our last word for our vital vocabulary lesson is original. Our definition for original would be the very first of its kind. So for original, we have the very first of its kind. So we could be talking about a book or a movie or a sneaker. When it's the original, that means it was part of the very first group that ever came out. So if you're getting Jordans, you know how we have like the retro 11s or the 4s. Someone who maybe bought a pair back in 1985 might have an original pair. So they might have the very first pair of Jordans that ever came out before we had them re-released and re-released. So the original pairs of Jordans can be super old too because they were the first of its kind. So not the black and yellow Jordans that just came out a little bit ago, like 2 weeks or so, but we would be talking about the Jordans that came out back in the 80s and the 90s when Michael Jordan was first putting them out. You could also be talking about baseball cards. The original ones cost a lot of money because they're very old, and they were the very first ones to ever come out back in the 1920s or the 1930s, or original Pokemon cards that came out in the 90s. You can buy some new ones now. You can buy them at the store, but if you have original ones, they can be worth lots of money because they're the very first of its kind. So I can say for my context sentence, my sister has the original Pikachu Pokemon card from 1998. So she has the very first of its kind. She didn't go to the store and buy one yesterday. She didn't get some for her birthday last year. She has the very first of its kind. She has an original Pokemon card. So let's take a few minutes and think of an illustration. How would you illustrate something being original, the very first of its kind? Are you going to draw a sneaker? Are you going to draw a card? Maybe the original Harry Potter books that came out in the early 2000s? How would you illustrate the definition for original to help you remember that it means the very first of its kind? I'll give you a few minutes and you can go over that. All right, scholars, we're going to wrap up our vital vocabulary session by going over our words just one more time. So our first word is gracious, meaning an act of kindness, being nice, being polite. Stale means it's no longer fresh, doesn't taste as good as it did when you first bought it. Flattened means going from one shape to a flat shape on a flat surface. The horse's ears flattened against his head. Frantically means to have a lot of nervous, worried energy. It's something that you feel when you're scared and you're looking for something or trying to find something. You might do it frantically because you're nervous or worried. Muttered, when you mutter, that means your words are jumbled together, your voice is lower, it's hard to hear, and it's hard to understand what someone said. Official means that by the rules, they were the winner. They met all of the regulations or expectations for being the official winner or the official title holder of something. So the cat was the official winner of the race. Based on the rules of the race and the people in charge, he was the one who officially won the race. And our last two that are not on this paper, but we did them together, we have brainstorm and original. So remember, brainstorm means when a group of people get together to come up with or create new ideas, like coming up with new names for a class pet. And original means the very first of its kind. My father had an original pair of Jordans from the 1980s, and they're worth a lot of money. They're the very first of its kind. So as you are reading and writing and learning, scholars, I want you to use some of these words in your writing. And if you encounter them in your reading, see if it helps you understand a little bit more what's going on in the story. So if you see the word gracious or frantically, see if that helps you understand exactly what's going on in our story now. All right, I'll see you guys next time for our vital vocabulary sessions.